I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to the next reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Clear and present danger is over. Andy, would you please do the honors?
How dare you come into this office and bark at me like some little junkyard dog? I'm the President of the United States.
Thank you.
You have to do your follow-up, though.
How dare you, sir? Okay. The truth be told, that line is the whole reason I wanted to do this show, this series. Clear and present danger. On rewatch, Andy, I got to tell you, I was surprised.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, ask me why.
Why were you surprised, Pete?
I like this movie even more than I remember liking this movie.
Okay.
In fact, it's like,
wow,
this is going to be a tough conversation.
Wow. Okay.
Because it's up there. Like, it makes me want to put Red October and Clear and Present Danger in a ring and let them duke it out. It's like right there.
Interesting.
I know.
Interesting. Okay.
You don't, I take it you
feel
didn't
good about
feel
that?
quite so strongly about that.
I actually really liked it. I also was surprised by the film that it held up really well. And I mean, it has some things that I think are worth kind of examining a little more detail, but largely I was surprised that there were a lot of elements going on in this story that made it feel more expansive rather than just, I think, especially coming off of Patriot Games, which ends up feeling kind of like a small story because it really narrows down to just a threat against Jack and his family in a home invasion story, you know?
Yes.
And this film ends up feeling so much bigger and broader and dealing with more complexities going on in the U.S. government, everything going on down in Colombia, and then just the and when I say everything going on in Colombia, I mean like these covert ops that we have happening down there with Willem Dafoe's character and this mission that they're undergoing to kind of clean things up as far as these cartels and everything, and how far that ends up evolving and devolving, and Jack Ryan really kind of being an analyst and figuring some things out as far as like what is happening right now. It played really well for me.
Well, so that's where I would love to start, is to talk about Jack Ryan in this movie, because I think Harrison Ford played Jack Ryan appreciably differently than he did in the last movie. And I think it's important to note what this Jack Ryan is when compared against what we set out in Red October as really liking about that Jack Ryan. Do you have a stance on Jack Ryan in this movie and where he sits?
I mean, yeah, I definitely feel like I'm right there with exactly what you're talking about. This Jack Ryan feels like the Jack Ryan who is more the analyst and who's trying to figure things out. Yes, he really is the goody two-shoes Boy Scout in this. To that end, you almost could argue that he's a little bit of a kind of a cardboard cutout, you know, cowboy in a white hat sort of character. But I still think that he plays it really well. I mean, it's Harrison Ford, and he just delivers this type of role perfectly. And so I enjoy watching how he delivers the analysis of it. I never feel like he's the same Jack Ryan who's just like, they just got me so mad, I just had to attack. Like, it never seems like that. And anytime he's in a scene of action, it's like the beginning of Patriot Games, where it's like he's stuck in a situation where a caravan is being attacked and just has to think smart and quick to try getting out of there and saving whoever he can. Mm-hmm. Likewise, at the end, he's just like, I'm wanting to help these people who got left behind. Now, maybe more realistically, he would have been like Charlie Wilson in Charlie Wilson's War, who's just a senator who sent people off to do this stuff. Mm-hmm. But I think that it played okay for me, where he actually goes down to actually talk to these guys and try to get them help. And so it played just really well as far as what my expectations have come to be with Jack Ryan.
Yeah. I think that's the part that I appreciate the most about this, that it never felt like Jack Ryan machismo was taking over the character motivation. Every scrape he gets into is accidental, and he's most at home speaking truth to power in a suit in an office in Washington. He feels like he is not at home and not capable when he is boots on the ground in Colombia. He feels like he just accidentally ended up there and is using the tools that he has to actually figure it out. Because it's not like he is a guy with honor, right? He knows what it means to be an honorable person, and that motivates him to do things that he doesn't know how to do. And I think this movie captures that better than maybe the other two before it. And I really, really like that. I have more fun watching him in a suit in Washington than any of the actiony stuff that goes on in Colombia.
Well, to that point, one of my favorite scenes in the film actually was when he was up against Ritter. I like to think that there's a line between his character here and eventually the Mission Impossible role that he ends up playing, but Henry Czerny. But when he is trying to steal stuff off of Ritter's computer, and does his little decoy phone call to distract him from looking at his screen, and then the that kind of game that they play across the phone as Ritter finally catches on and then is racing to delete stuff while he's racing to copy stuff. Like that is like just a great way to play the Jack Ryan character. And it was a fantastic scene.
Fantastic. And the fact that sequence, I love you brought up that sequence because the way it's blocked, the way their offices are oriented, the fact that after that, Ritter goes in and says, and opens the safe very deliberately and says it's a get out of jail free card. You don't have one of these, do you? Perfect. Yeah. Just perfect. He is a perfect dirtbag, Henry Czerny. Yeah. I mean, he just, speaking of, people who are just gifted with a certain amount of talent in one area, they just have to do that thing. This is why he's Mission Impossible. It's why he plays these political roles so well. But I think the duality between Henry Czerny and Harris Yulin plays Cutter. The two of them are the diabolical machinations of evil in Washington, and to have those guys be the guys that the ultimate villains. The ultimate villains are not the cartels. The cartels are incidental in this movie. The ultimate villains are the agents of corruption in Washington. And I think that this movie kind of captures the complexity of that. And our final sequence at the end where Ryan gets to go up against Donald Moffat's president is perfect because Moffat is an agent of emotion. Everyone else is an agent of mechanics and lack of emotion. And I feel like this movie captures the stuff that I get most excited about. It's crazy to me that I didn't remember so much of that before rewatching the film.
Well, yeah, and I think I remembered that this film dealt with cartels in South America, and that was kind of the big chunk of the plot. But I largely forgot all of the political machinations going on, and that was pretty interesting. Like the way that they play these games, and Ritter and Cutter behind the scenes to kind of create that get out of jail free card that he had, those sorts of things, but also Bennett's role in it, and largely the macroscopic might be too generous of a word to talk about how President Bennett sees these actions that he's doing. Like he just wants this stuff to get done and is okay not necessarily knowing how they get done, to the point where when Escobedo and the whole stuff has gone down as far as kind of like taking them all out, Ritter and Cutter are like, okay, we have to step back now because like women and children have been killed. Like it's been much bigger than we had actually thought it was going to be. And that's when the president's just like, just cut and run and leave the troops behind is basically the president's message. And that is kind of the big shift that we end up getting at that point, which, again, I think the president is content to play blind to what's actually happening. And then when things actually go down, has to, play presidential, which is what he ends up doing when Ryan comes into his office for that final confrontation.
Yeah, right. You froze like a lot, so I missed a lot of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I couldn't tell. You were just so serious. You're like...
Well, I think all that stuff really, really works. Now, this is contrasted with what's going on in Colombia, and I don't think it's bad what's going on in Colombia. I really don't. I just think when the movie becomes sort of cartoon adjacent, it's when we get Willem Dafoe involved in Colombia, and we get the actiony stuff. I do actually like the military bits. I love the big set pieces. The fact that they blew up that house. They really bought a house and blew it up. It was, and I think that's awesome when crews do that. Like that's a very cool thing to do. Go blow up a house, and so all of that stuff is really, really interesting. I just think that's the stuff that I remembered about the movie and remembered it with less of an impact than the political stuff. What do you think of Dafoe in this?
I can see why you say that, but at the same time, what I found interesting about it is that this is like a covert team dropped behind enemy lines in Colombia in order to specifically target all of these cartels. It's, as the film plays out, you're like, these guys have been here for a while. Like they're really just digging around, hiding in the jungle, and just kind of continuously taking out, drug manufacturing or processing plants or people or whatever, always hidden. And these cartels are all like, starting to point fingers at each other. Like it plays, I found it played really in an interesting way. And what was so fascinating was just the way that it portrayed how covert operations can go and how lengthy they can be. And I guess in my head, I generally think covert operations are like get in, get out, and, without anyone noticing that you were even there. These guys are there for a long time and still remain undetected until they're finally left behind, and I think that's what I found so fascinating about that story. And I ended up really liking that story because it does set Ryan up opposite the realities of what these kind of the wartime politics, how it plays out, and how somebody like Ryan, who's looking at the results, the kind of the conflict of what actually had gone on in those situations.
Yeah, I can see that. I think where if you just look at character economy, I think where I get a bit tied up in that relationship is that I feel like Benjamin Bratt and Willem Dafoe could serve the same purpose. Now, Bratt was on the crew, but when we're introduced to him, he's kind of leading the selection committee with Willem Dafoe. And I think there's more sort of character mechanic in that relationship than maybe is maybe the movie needs. And it's not to say that Willem Dafoe isn't any good. I like Willem Dafoe. He's fine. I just feel like that's when the movie becomes a bit of a propaganda machine for the film, because everything that's going on in Washington is pointing out the poison in Washington, right? It's horrible. Like this is why we can't have nice things, because no one in Washington will talk to each other for the want of their own agenda. But once we get into the military might of the American special ops forces, it becomes a propaganda film. Look at how powerful the American military is, and how sneaky they can be in the jungle, and how they can always hit their target. And it is, and I just I don't know. Maybe this is the piece of the film that has aged for me, given the complexities of 2024 America, that it doesn't leave necessarily the best taste in my mouth. Do you think there's a part of that?
Well, but I think that's, I don't know, for me, like, that's part of what the film is doing, right? Like,
yeah,
they're just, they're just weapons that go where they're pointed. And, right or wrong, they're just doing whatever the orders are. And Ritter and Cutter have put this whole thing into play. And yeah, they happen to be really good at their jobs, but I don't think that, I think it all still plays to the point that you were making about it being the mindset of who's behind those weapons.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And that's why I think Clark actually is kind of an interesting character, because he's doing what he's told, but he also ends up getting screwed by the people who are telling him what to do. And they just abandon him and leave him behind, and then go and blame the whole thing on Jack Ryan. Like, I thought that played in a really interesting way, where you have this whole team who's just, going on and kind of clearing house, Yeah. And meanwhile, then you also have like Cutter having this little, meeting that they set up with Escobedo about kind of, or was it Escobedo? It wasn't Escobedo. It was which one was his right-hand man that was trying to take over for him? That was Cortez.
Yeah. Well,
he was meeting with Cortez. Yeah. Who is trying to take the, setting up a plan for the future of bringing drugs into the country, and how they can do it, but in a safer way, while they're all still making a lot of money. Like, that's what I found interesting. And that's why I like the Clark side of the story, because for me, it just ends up just showing how these dirty politicians kind of put all this together to the point where they blow this house up, and none of them are even cognizant, or that's probably not the right word, but just not worrying too much at the time initially about the fact that it's also full of families and other people who aren't necessarily involved.
Right. And how easy that is, right? This is one of those movies that where the sort of cultural aesthetic of those guys standing in the room watching the sort of heat vision of what happens to that house is kind of a slow motion bit of the movie, where we're meant to see how easy it is for the might of the U.S. military to reach the dark places anywhere in the world, and for those guys to be nonchalant about it. And that is a dark message of the film. I get what you're saying, and I think part of it is just sort of maybe overwatching the movie for a podcast, because I really do enjoy so much of the movie, and I think it's I'll say another thing that's probably dated, given 2024 America, dated in a positive way, is, to your point about just sort of attitudes at the very top of political structures, that this movie hinges on a president that is emotionally impacted and petulant, right? It is a guy who just wants to act, and people who serve the will of the president blindly. And that may be right now the most important message that this movie offers for me. I couldn't, I don't know how you watch this movie and not think about that. Right.
Yeah. How these people who have these roles really end up kind of becoming, that whole absolute power corrupts absolutely sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's they all fall into the pattern of doing what they can because they're able to.
Yeah.
That's the darkness behind it. And you just see how it hits somebody like Chavez, who is really good. One of the few things that I've never forgotten from this is when he's in his ghillie suit and is so good that when they're doing the little test run with him, he's like literally like right in front of them when he pops up. And I'm like, I don't know if that's quite possible, but sure, for the context of the movie,
I love it
plays well. Yeah.
How did you get here, soldier? By being a sneaky bastard, sir. So good. So good. Raymond Cruz is so good.
Yeah, it plays really well. And it's fun to see what they're doing with situations like that. So I'm having a good time with this. I enjoy the characters. I enjoy the way all of it plays out. And I think largely, it creates a great structure of a story, as we were talking about earlier, for Jack Ryan to maneuver through.
And let's talk about James Greer.
Okay, yes. The dark end that we have for that character.
Yeah, Greer is the lifeline for Jack, right? Greer is now Grandpa Jim, really, for Jack, right? He helps him navigate Washington. And now we're in a position where Greer is sick, that he steps out and kind of becomes a little bit of our wizened old Book of the Vampire in this movie. When Jack sees him, he explains things. He explains the emotional mechanics. He's the guy who tells Jack, watch your back, Jack, right? Like and he dies, leaving Jack alone. And I think this is one of the things that the movie does exceptionally well, is feeling alone when Greer dies, finding out Greer dies on the phone. I, as a member of the audience, feel as alone as I imagine Jack felt, right? This movie sets up so well the cards stacked against Jack that when his only trump card dies, I felt that. And I think the movie just nailed that emotional beat.
Yeah, it's a very hard scene or hard beat just to go through with that character, because it does leave Jack feeling largely alone. And really at this point, because he's not really sure, who's on his side, he's just other than the guy, the nerd in the computer lab, right? He's just trying to figure out how can I figure all this out, what's going on, and how can I help in this situation where kind of all of these people who are in the government above me are corrupt. And that becomes the real struggle for him, especially once Greer is gone and he's left alone.
The nerd in the computer lab is Greg German. And
yes.
He's an Ally McBeal
right.
Guy. And he's such a weird character on that show. It was a really a fun treat to see him in this movie. I'd forgotten that he was the nerd
right
in this movie. Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, the little people, because you got him, you got Ted Raimi who's doing stuff, you got Vondy Curtis Hall who's helping. There were some faces in here that I was just like, oh, it's fun to see all of these people in such bit roles, at this point in their career, that were just playing these characters, and it was just fun.
And of course, Clark Gregg, friend of the show, Clark Gregg.
Yeah, that's right.
The piece that doesn't work, if we look at how the movie dates itself, is that it seems like every time Jack goes in front of Congress is the sort of ethical check on power.
Right.
They ask all the right questions, and that I just don't believe anymore.
How things have changed. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, very funny. Hey, considering how we ended our conversation last week, talking about the cliffhanger ending, the reveal of the gender of Jack and Kathy's new son, how does that play, or does it feel like, as far as cliffhangers go, it left us like it was kind of a meh sort of return to Jack's family life?
Big meh. Big meh.
Yeah.
did you even remember as we see Jack's family life? Probably because you were watching for it, but I wasn't even thinking about it. It was
it's
weird.
Like they don't make a point about it. Like it was a cliffhanger ending. What's it going to be? We don't know. We're just going to end the film right here. And then we come in and it's like, he's already, I can't remember what, like 2-3 years old, something like that, running around, and we see Jack Jr. And I don't feel like it's brought up in a way where it's pointing out like it's the reveal. Like we don't get anything as film goers to kind of give us a sense that, oh, that's the payoff I was waiting for from the end of the last film. Like it's a strange way, again, to have ended that last film, setting us up for what's going to be.
Yeah.
Just weird.
It was a very, very strange choice to cliffhanger it. It brings us maybe to the Noyce choice, which is, we talked about, when no one else steps in, give it to the Aussie.
Right.
I think it felt like such a like I'm going to saddle that on the Noyce choice for him to choose to lean on that ending, and an equal measure of maturing as a director of Jack Ryan films between the first and the second in his control, that he chose not to play into it. Like I thought that was a good choice. Don't give me a big reveal because nobody cares. Nobody cares about the gender of the Ryan's second child.
To that end, how does the family play in this film?
Interestingly,
we see them. We've got Kathy and Jack still. We've got Thora Birch still as the daughter, and of course now we have Jack Jr. It's Kathy gets a few scenes, but largely her part of the story is centered around the mystery of this friend of hers who happens to be the girlfriend of Cortez, who is posing as just some South American businessman, and really kind of using her to have somebody working at the FBI that he can kind of, secret information from if he needs to, right? To find out what's going on. Like that helps him find out, oh, the FBI or the CIA has sent a team down to Colombia. Like he's finding all of this out covertly through her. And of course, that leads to her death when he's trying to cover up loose ends and has to kill her in the cabin that she rents. And that's kind of Kathy's part of the story, is just there to tell Jack, oh no, 2 deaths happened that day.
Moira, honey.
Right. Yeah, she also died. And so that's it.
Okay. I asked the question legitimately. What role would we expect her to have? Right. And I say that knowing that they set her up they prop her up, I think, well. Like she's the doctor. She's, we have that great exchange where, mommy makes more money than the president. Like all of that, I think, props her up as being the primary breadwinner for the family. She's clearly very capable. But given the story that we have, what do you want from Jack's wife?
Yeah. Well, no, and I think that's a fair question in a film like this. It inevitably, it always ends up being frustrating when somebody like Ann Archer just ends up, stuck in the roles of playing the faithful wife. Like that ends up being a role so often played by a lot of great actresses, where it's just like, well, we need a wife, and she's got a couple scenes that are fun to be in. So how about you? And I guess that's where it sits with this one.
Now, the service that they give her, again, is propping her up and saying culturally, she matters, right? She's the breadwinner. She's the doctor. She makes more money than the president. All of those things matter. She's a great role model to her kids. All of that matters. Given the story that we have, I don't know what else to do. This seems like an artifact of the 90s. And had they made this movie today, they would have made Ritter or Cutter a woman. And that would have been something to say, like, okay, we're going to have a gender blind exploration of political evil. Yeah. But in this case, it's just white men, and I don't love it. It is the story that we have, and they sure do look like politics at the time.
Yeah, no, very true. Yeah, and also to your point, it's interesting to see like when they get to Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit, how they put Kathy into the story more, right? Like that story fully has Kathy as a pawn, really played by the villain in the film.
Yes, and we're going to need to talk a little bit about that.
Yes, we will. So yeah, and I guess that's the thing, and it plays okay. It's just in the scope of the stories, it's interesting to see what they do with Kathy, and I don't know. I guess I always hope for more, but to your point, it's like it's not really the story.
It's not the story. It's not the story. I don't know how they fix that without doing what they do in Shadow Recruit, and I don't know that that would be believable. She is a doctor. The thing that this movie does best for her is lets me imagine that if you turn all of the cameras that are focused on Washington politics and turn them all on Kathy's hospital, there would be a hospital drama in which she is the lead. Right?
Right.
And that's great. Like that is a character with resonance to me. She's not empty. She's just not the point of this movie.
Yeah. I get it.
Can we talk about Joaquim de Almeida, who plays it, Latin Jack Ryan?
Latin Jack Ryan, yeah. Is he Latin Jack Ryan? How does that
No, I don't understand. I love that the reason that plays well is because, the only reason that plays is because it signals just how much Moira has a crush on Jack. And my hunch is everyone that she sees, every guy that vaguely resembles Jack becomes a blank Jack Ryan because she so much wants to get with Jack. That's how I read it.
That's kind of how it plays. Yeah. It's funny.
Yeah.
I like him as this villain among villains who is plotting to kind of take over the cartels and put a whole new thing in place. It plays well for me, and I like watching him on screen. I thought he was fun in this role.
Yeah, me too. And I think the any of the sequences between Cortez and Escobedo are really great. I think Miguel Sandoval as our cartel head is fantastic. When we meet him in the batting cage in his house, it is just like a kind of a pitch perfect first meeting of our cartel head.
Yeah.
And he's not a good guy. He's also a family man. The fact that he uses Cortez and Cortez uses him is a predictable sort of drug lord mechanic that we've come to expect. And I like that they're the how they portray being on their heels when America's military might is pushed on them. I think their setups are really, really good in the film, and their overall arc is really satisfying in the film. And the fact that we do get a bit of it's a bit of a toss up. Like who's the real bad guy? Who am I supposed to follow as the antagonist? Is it Cortez or is it Escobedo? It goes back and forth for a lot of the movie.
Yeah. No, it actually is quite interesting to the point where it was actually gratifying to see Ryan kind of teaming up with Escobedo to try bringing Cortez down. Like that actually plays really well for me in that moment. Oh, lost you again.
I lost you.
Check. Testing. Hello.
Sorry, you disappeared.
There you are.
Yeah.
Did you hear
so what were you saying? I didn't hear.
I was saying how nice it was to see the scene when it played out with Ryan actually teaming up with Escobedo to try bringing Chavez down.
Yes.
I mean Cortez down. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that kind of because you know what that does really well is it puts Jack Ryan, it puts this character back in a position of political power, right? It becomes a negotiation, even though there are guns and knives in the room, it's a political negotiation. And that's where Jack is best.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Should we talk a little bit about is it worth bringing up the script at all and kind of the process for getting this made?
Tell me about it. Tell me all about it, Andy.
Well, this, as we talked about last week, McTiernan wanted to do this after Hunt for Red October. He didn't want to do Patriot Games. The studio did, and he actually there was already a script that John Milius had written of Clear and Present Danger, and an adaptation that generally, I guess, seemed to be faithful to the book. People really enjoyed, but again, they wanted to do Patriot Games. So McTiernan was like, peace out, I'm not going to do it. And they brought in, they did Patriot Games with Noyce, who then they said, that was great, let's do this again. So they had him on for this one. They had the script getting rewritten a few times. Clancy, because he was so dissatisfied with Patriot Games, wasn't going to let them do anymore until they gave him a huge chunk of money. So they had the Milius script rewritten, reworked, and Clancy still wasn't happy, so they had Steven Zalian come in to do some rewrites to finally get the approval. And then they still kept Milius around just to kind of help with some of the action scenes and everything. But I guess they got a script that Clancy approved of and everyone was happy with. So, and interestingly, they had to rework the character of the president. Considering how he plays in the film, I think it's interesting, but they still had to do rewrites of him because they wanted to get approval to use some military equipment, and the Pentagon would not let them have any of that access until they did some of those rewrites. So I think that's pretty interesting.
Do you feel any of their fingerprints in the movie?
Not really. Like, I mean, if anything, I feel like that might point to some of what you were saying about the way that all of the covert ops down in Colombia are portrayed. Like maybe they had some reworking done around there as well. The president, I don't think, it's interesting because he still comes across as kind of agreeing to shadiness. So it didn't feel like if the Pentagon was saying, we want him to be more, America's protagonist, it didn't come across that way.
No, he's an antagonist in the movie, right? Like he starts off as super suave, but there is, I can't imagine watching this movie and feeling really good about the presidential leadership portrayed here.
Yeah, right. No, absolutely.
I think that's an interesting takeaway from the movie like this, is that it is entirely cynical, right? Like this is a cynical movie that we need a guy like Jack Ryan to be a check on power is a cynical take on political machinations in Washington right now. Like I think that's an interesting thing. Like, yes, you can make the argument that it is rah-rah Americana, but the real story is about the fact that petulance at the top is a national trait for our country. Yeah.
Right. To the point where it makes you wonder who is going to be the Jack Ryan in today's government.
Yeah, if you look to the left and the right and not think of who it is, it might be you.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. Hopefully they recognize that, yeah.
Oh, dear.
Hey, I have to ask, what do you think? We have the president early on saying the title of the film.
Yeah, I know. I'm okay with it, and here's why: because it is it's read as legislation, right? Like it's read as part of a law.
Yeah.
Like the president can do this thing if he sees a thing that is a clear and present danger to the security of the United States of America. And that makes it okay. Okay. Gotcha. But the other titles, like did you go through and look at some of the international titles in Letterboxd?
I didn't.
They're like, I went through to change the poster, and Das Cartel is okay. The German. Danger Immediate is another one, like immediate danger. Mm-hmm. Sotto il segno de pericolo. I don't know. It's none of them feel quite as at home for me than like Clear and Present Danger.
Right. Interesting.
Okay. Danger Immediate.
Well, it's always fun to see what those foreign titles translate to. I always like that.
Yeah.
Well, anything else for this one?
No, that's what I got.
All right. Well, there's a lot of interesting stuff to dig around with in this one. I have a good time with it. And James Horner's score, I always enjoy him. He comes back. Yes, there are some Hornerisms throughout.
Definitely Hornerisms.
Some stuff into here that I'm like, oh, we're getting more of him pulling from his own stuff. But at the same time, it works well for the film. I enjoy it quite a bit.
Tick.
Yeah. That was a good one. And I will say something that is a frustration for me is the fact that as fun as it is for you to quote the president in his moment when Ryan is confronting him, it frustrates me to no end that that's like the climactic confrontation in the film, and it's like right up front in the trailer. That's one of those moments where it's like you're putting it right there.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I watched the trailer after I watched the movie, and that didn't hit me. But you're right. That gives it away.
Yeah.
It's not like it gives anything away. It just gives I don't know that it gives any, it's not like a plot spoiler, but it's certainly an emotional spoiler.
Yeah. No, it absolutely is. Because you're already kind of having that sense of that showdown between the president and Jack. So.
Yeah, that the president is ill somehow.
Yeah.
All right.
Jack, he does something to piss Jack off, and
nobody
should piss
Nobody
Jack
pisses
off.
Jack Ryan off.
That's right. All right. Well, let's take a break. And what do I say? Well, we'll be right back. But first, our credits.
The next reel is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson, music by Curtis Cole and JoJo Hundred, Vic Davey, Matthias Forster, Oriole Novella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds all the stats for the awards and numbers at the-numbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show.
Is this
me?
You
or me? Okay.
This is me. Oh, where did it just go? Okay, here we go. This is, I may have gone a little long with this. We'll see. I was inspired by presidential junkyard dogs, I guess.
Excellent.
From the halls of the White House to the pages of history, the bond between presidents and their pets has always been a source of fascination and delight for the American people. Whether it's a loyal dog, a playful cat, or an even more exotic creature, these four-legged friends have played a crucial role in helping our nation's leaders navigate the stresses and challenges of the presidency. Take, for example, President Theodore Roosevelt, whose love of animals was legendary. In addition to his famous dog Skip, Roosevelt kept a veritable menagerie in the White House, including a small bear named Jonathan Edwards, a lizard named Bill, and a one-legged rooster. For Roosevelt, these creatures were more than just pets. They were a source of joy, companionship, and even political symbolism. President Calvin Coolidge, too, was known for his love of animals. In addition to his famous collie, Rob Roy, Coolidge kept a raccoon named Rebecca, a bobcat named Smokey, and even a pygmy hippopotamus named Billy. According to some accounts, Coolidge once quipped that he didn't mind being called Silent Cal because it gave him more time to talk to his pets. More recently, President George W. Bush's Scottish Terrier Barney became a beloved figure in the White House, starring in his own version of Barney Cam videos and even writing a book about his adventures. And who could forget President Bill Clinton's famous cat, Socks, who became a media darling and even had his own fan club. But the connection between presidents and their pets goes beyond just companionship and cute photo ops. In many cases, these animals have played a vital role in helping our leaders cope with the stresses and challenges of the presidency. President Harry Truman, for example, was known for taking long walks with his dog, Feller, as a way of clearing his mind and gaining perspective on the issues of the day. And President Dwight Eisenhower's Weimaraner, Heidi, was a constant presence in the Oval Office, providing a calming influence and a sense of normalcy amidst the chaos of the Cold War. But perhaps no president has been more closely associated with his pets than John F. Kennedy. In addition to his famous Welsh Terrier Charlie, Kennedy kept a menagerie of animals in the White House, including a cat named Tom Kitten, a canary named Robin, and even a pony named Macaroni. Kennedy's love of animals was so well known that it even became a political asset. During the 1960 presidential campaign, he often posed for photos with his pets as a way of projecting a warm, relatable image to voters. And just as presidents have turned to their pets for comfort and companionship, they've also turned to the magic of the movies as a way of escaping the pressures of the presidency. Throughout history, presidents have used the White House movie theater as a way of entertaining guests, rewarding staff members, and even conducting a little bit of Hollywood diplomacy. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, for example, was known to host regular movie nights in the White House, inviting cabinet members, foreign dignitaries, and even Hollywood stars to join him for screenings of the latest releases. For Roosevelt, these gatherings were a way of building morale and fostering a sense of unity during difficult times. And who could forget President Reagan's famous screening of war games in the White House, which helped to spark a national conversation about the dangers of nuclear war. Or President Clinton's screening of High Noon for his staff, which he used as a way of inspiring them to stand up to political adversaries. Today, as the movie industry continues to evolve and adapt to new technologies, presidents have more options than ever before when it comes to screening films in the White House. I just lost my place. Screening films in the White House. And with the rise of streaming services like those available through Netflix, I keep moving things around. I gotta stop doing that. And with the rise of streaming services, like those available through the Next Reel's watch page at thenextreel.com/watch, it's easier than ever for presidents and their pets to enjoy the magic of the movies from the comfort of their own home. Imagine for a moment President Biden settling in for a cozy movie night with his beloved German Shepherds, Champ and Major, by his side. With the Next Reel's carefully curated selection of films, handpicked from the discussions of our family of podcasts, there's something for every taste and sensibility, from classic dramas and comedies to thought-provoking foreign films. And by using our links to rent or purchase movies through Apple or Amazon, the president and you can not only enjoy top-notch entertainment, but also support the podcast and the communities of film lovers that make the Next Reel possible. So why not take a page from the president's playbook and make the Next Reel's watch page your go-to destination for movie night with your own furry friends? Whether you're watching with a loyal dog, a playful cat, or even a pygmy hippopotamus, hey, we don't judge. You're sure to find something that will leave you entertained, enlightened, and inspired. And who knows, maybe like the presidents and their beloved pets, you'll find a new favorite film or a new appreciation for the power of cinema to bring us together and to help us make sense of the world around us. Because in the end, that's what the Next Reel is all about. Celebrating the magic of the movies and the enduring bond between humans and animals. So grab some popcorn, cuddle up with your favorite furry friend, and join us at thenextreel.com/watch. We'll see you at the Next Reel.
I just learned something there. That was informative. And I have to tell you,
rather long.
I really love the idea that the president is a real hunter of affiliate links to support his favorite podcasters.
Right?
The president and you. All right. You want to skip sequels and remakes?
Sure.
Award season, Andy. How to do at award season?
You know, technical sorts of awards. It had some other ones, though. 3 wins, 11 other nominations. At the Oscars, it was nominated for Best Sound and Best Sound Effects Editing, both of which it lost to Speed. At the ASCAP Film and TV Awards, this is one where it's like everyone who gets nominated wins. It won for top box office films for James Horner's score, tying with Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, 4 Weddings and a Funeral, Interview with the Vampire, Maverick, Philadelphia, Star Trek Generations, True Lies, The Client, and Wolf.
Wow.
I'm not really sure about those awards. It's just like, if you get nominated, you win. Anyway. At the Blockbuster Entertainment Awards, Harrison Ford won Favorite Actor in Action or Theatrical Film, also Favorite Actor in Action or On Video. So I guess this film had enough time to be nominated for both of those in the same year. At the MTV Movie and TV Awards, it was nominated for Best Action Sequence for the ambush of the CIA convoy, lost to Speed for the bus escape and airplane explosion.
Yeah.
At the Motion Picture Sound Editors Golden Reel Awards, it was nominated for Best Sound Editing, Dialogue and ADR, and Best Sound Editing Sound Effects. It lost the first one to Forrest Gump, the second to Braveheart. At the Cinema Audio Society Awards, again, outstanding achievement in sound mixing for feature films, but lost to Forrest Gump. And last but not least, the 2015-2020 Awards, looking back 20 years, it was nominated for Best Sound Design, but lost to Speed.
Oh, wow. I can totally see all of those, except for the weird one at ASCAP. That's weird.
Yeah, it's just, hey, you all did such a great job. Everyone wins.
That's effectively the honorable mention.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, how to do at the box office? Did it beat the IRA movie?
Well, for Noyce's second Ryan film, he got even more money, even though Patriot Games didn't do as well as October. He had $62 million, or $132.7 million in today's dollars, to work with. The The movie opened August 3rd, 1994, opposite The Little Rascals, Airheads, and the limited release of The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. It opened in the number 1 spot, which it held on to for 2 weeks, and stayed in the top 10 for 9 weeks, going on to land as the 10th highest grossing film of the year. It went on to earn $122.2 million domestically and $93.7 million internationally for a total gross of $462 million in today's dollars. That lands it with an adjusted profit per finished minute of $2.3 million, the lowest so far, but then again, it's also the longest.
Okay, I'll take that. It's the longest, so it might actually be better than... No, that doesn't make sense either. And the APFM, if it's still the lowest, it's lower than Patriot Games, even though Patriot Games is shorter.
Yeah, I mean, I can check real quick and see, like, did it actually beat Patriot Games when it comes to just the actual the actual profit of the film?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find it.
You know, while you're looking, we didn't talk about my favorite accidental hero sequence in this movie, which is when Jack asks the Colombian salesman if he takes company checks and hands the CIA business card over and buys a used helicopter. That right there is it's like a signature Jack Ryan scene, right? Like this is the tool that he has is a checkbook in the middle of a jungle. And I think it's funny and perfect.
That was true. Very funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
It turns out Patriot Games, when it boils down to the profit per cost, it ended up earning 2.74 times its budget back. Clear and Present Danger ended up earning 3.48 times its budget back. So it did, in fact, become a more profitable film in the end than Patriot Games did.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm really...
And out of curiosity, where's Hunt for Red October on my list? Hunt for Red October, 6.73 times its budget.
Wow.
So yeah, it's definitely, it's going to be the one to beat.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, I don't think it got beat.
It didn't. No. Sum of All Fears did, however, beat Patriot Games. It did not beat Clear and Present Danger.
Okay.
Just for a look ahead.
All right.
Since I don't have to pull this up again next week.
Yeah, right. Okay. All right. Well, that's all I got. I love this movie.
I loved it a lot more than I remembered loving it. I had a great time with it. And if there is another Jack Ryan film that I'll return to more quickly, it's going to be this one.
This is the one.
Other than Red October, which I just really like.
I might return to this one before Red October. That's the kind of conflict I'm under right now, Andy.
Yeah. Well, I may, just because I didn't remember it as well, just to revisit it again, you know? Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, really enjoyed it.
Yep.
All right, well, we'll be right back for our ratings, but first, here's the trailer for next week's movie. Wrapping up our series for the time being, it's Phil Alden Robinson's 2002 film, The Sum of All Fears.
All right. What's the over-under on me making it through this whole thing? It's not that long.
Okay, good, because as you say, otherwise it's not very high.
Yeah. Operatives, listen up. I'm about to brief you on a powerful asset in your entertainment arsenal. It's called the Next Reel Film Podcast Network membership program at truestory.fm/join. This isn't just any podcast feed. By joining at truestory.fm/join, you go deep behind enemy lines into a vault of premium audio intel over 1,000 episodes deep across shows like The Next Reel and The Film Board, CinemaScope, Movies We Like, and more. Early and ad-free access to all new episodes before civilian release, unredacted extended cuts, and bonus recon material that shed new light on the target. As a member, you get the extended debrief exploring film's gritty realism. Clancy's... No, I'm going to cut that. I cut all that. Make no mistake, this is no CIA-backed op. The Next Reel team are independents, beholden to no corporate overlords or regulatory red tape. Their sole mission... to deliver uncompromising film analysis and entertainment direct to you and your rogue operatives. By joining their ranks as a member at truestory.fm/join, your support keeps their servers operational and their mics hot. You simultaneously acquire an indispensable... You simultaneously acquire an indispensable resource and become a force multiplier for independent podcasting. Potential followers like you must make the critical... Jiminy. Potential followers like you must make this critical decision. Do you want the unredacted truth about access to the massive back catalog and all the greatest movies in the field? Or will you simply remain part of the uninformed public? The choice is yours. Join the op at truestory.fm/join. Over and out. Close the book on that op. You're muted.
Yeah, whoops. That was great. Yeah, and you pulled it off. You did okay. Right. Yeah. It was you had your moments, but I'm proud of you.
Thanks. All right. Letterboxd, Andy, letterboxd.com/thenextreel. That's where you can find our HQ page over on the fantastic Letterboxd service. What are you going to do with this movie?
I'm conflicted like you are. I don't think it's a 5-star film for me. Is it 4? Is it 4.5? I really enjoyed it. I think I'm going to lean toward 4 for now, but it could be something that goes up on another rewatch. So 4 stars and a heart is where I'm putting this one.
That's exactly where I am. I think it's 4 stars and a heart. I wrote my review over on Letterboxd. I think after this conversation, I was probably too hard on Willem Dafoe, and I could maybe redact a little bit of what I said about that. But for the most part, I think this movie is really, really great. And I think, like you, it could go up on rewatch. But I'm at a solid 4 and a heart right now.
Yeah. It's a really enjoyable film. I had a good time with it, and I'll be curious to see how it plays with the rest of the Ryans as we kind of finish this series up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we didn't talk about it, but for our member pre-show chat next week, we're not going to be looking at Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit in this particular round of the series, but for our pre-show chat next week for members, we are going to talk through all the different Jack Ryans, which should be a fun conversation. Just to break them all down. For sure. All right. Well, don't forget, you can get all of our ratings and reviews over at Letterboxd. We are over there at The Next Reel. I'm over there at Soda Creek Film, and Pete is there at Pete Wright. So what did you think about Clear and Present Danger? We would love to hear your thoughts. Hop into the Show Talk channel over in our Discord community, where we will be talking about the movie this week. When the movie ends, our conversation begins. Letterboxd giveth, Andrew. As Letterboxd always doeth. I got one. It's a little bit long. Is yours long? It's not super long. Do you want me to go first? And then you can wrap us up? Sure. Sounds good. All right. This one's from Will Menaker, who's also a 4-star. Like us. Hey. Patriot Games really suffers by comparison to this much better sequel. They get rid of almost all of the Ryan family dynamics and bring on Milius to punch up the screenplay about the CIA's secret war on a Colombian cartel. Yes, please. Milius really brings Clancy's fetishism of American military hardware to the fore, especially in the scene where they drop a cellulose-encased laser-guided bomb on a cartel compound. Also the scene where the FBI director, his SUV convoy, and like 20 agents get owned with RPGs in a Bogota alley is still so hard. The bad guys on both the Colombian and American sides have realistic motivations, unlike in Patriot Games when where they're just dumb and follow a college professor back to America to try and kill him and his whole family for no discernible reason other than to show what bloodthirsty dogs the IRA are. I love to see Miguel Sandoval in anything. Here he plays the Escobar character. Also, big respect to Joaquim de Almeida, who played the all-purpose Latino bad guy in every 90s movie. His character is described as the Latin Jack Ryan in this, but he always struck me as more the Latin Phil Hartman. R.I.P. Yes. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. That's a good one. What do you got? I have a 3.5 and a heart by Matt Singer, who says, while some of the action sequences are utterly ludicrous, this is a good deal smarter and far less jingoistic than I remembered or expected. The film's true villains aren't the drug kingpins who set the plot in motion. They're the image-conscious, war-hungry bureaucrats in the Department of Defense who instigate an unauthorized war in Colombia, along with the President of the United States, who tacitly authorizes the scheme. If the past few years have taught us nothing else, it's that an ending where a morally righteous crusader tells the truth and brings about some kind of sea change in government is pure fiction. Still, the cynical view of the military-industrial complex here is like something out of a paranoid 70s thriller rather than a stolid 90s blockbuster. And that's not nothing.
Yeah, that's not nothing.
Yeah, right. I think it speaks well to how this film ends up playing. Yeah,
I do
good
too.
stuff.
Yeah, really good stuff. Thanks, Letterboxd.